ready to hold on to your emotions. IRB approved our project. As it was revised, we are now allowed to start the actual hardcore research in our program and in our project. I know we have a whole of what, 8 weeks left of the semester? Not even. We've got all of April and 2 weeks of March, and we're done. So we got about 6 weeks. Are you guys going to be able to adequately finish this in 6 weeks? Probably not. This project is going to go on into the summer if you so care to do so. Your grades will be published and posted based upon what we have. If you want to continue working on this project after the semester is over so that we can tune your paper and your project, great. I'll send edits until it's perfect, or I'll just edit it myself and then I'll take the byline too because I'm a stingy PhD. But anyway, we have been approved. You guys are now allowed, based on IRB, you are now allowed to go into Facebook, into Twitter, into Facebook, into 8chan and 4chan and Stormfront, and you can go into all of these websites seeking live comments. Again, you are not allowed to directly communicate with these individuals. So if you're reading a tweet and you just think they're absolutely freaking nuts, put it in your journal. You guys as a class, as individuals, as students are not allowed to directly communicate with the hate group members, but you can go glean all of the information that you can find. Okay, as you're taking quotes and as you're finding things about your specific hate group, you need to copy and paste it, put it in your journal. Okay, so that you can track your information and how you're going and how you're leading that. So with that in mind, I thought today would be an important day to start talking about hate groups themselves specifically. Okay, so what I want to do is we're going to cover the hate groups. We're going to cover the 7 stages of hate. We're going to talk about hate groups, hate crimes, and specifically we're going to talk about numbers within the country and within the state of Texas. So, the law of hate crimes. Currently, there are 43 states and the District of Columbia that have statutory provisions and laws similar to or based on the Anti-Defamation League's model. What is weird? Just a question out there, who's responsible for making law? In our system of government, who is responsible for making law?
Legislators.
The legislators, whether it's at the state or the federal level, the legislators are responsible for writing, creating, and making law. The hate crimes legislation that we have found in the United States of America today was written by the Anti-Defamation League. A special interest group wrote the hate crimes legislation that we follow in this country. Okay, every state has some form of legislation that can be tracked or can be invoked to readdress or to redress bias-motivated crime. I got a comment on one of my YouTube videos this morning. If you guys go to YouTube and you want to find it, it's kind of prophetic in my opinion. I think you need to change my name from Dr. Fisher to Prophet Fisher, or Fisher the Prophet, or something. In 2017, I created a video after Gray was killed called Police, Racism, and Community-Oriented Policing. Somebody made a comment to it. I've forgotten all of that I created this video, but it's very poignant to what we're doing today and what we're researching in this group. So go watch it. It's kind of interesting. In 1990, only 7 of the 31 states, today there's 43, 7 states had hate crime statutes that also included hate crimes against gender. It was, and today it's only 31 states that classify crimes against individuals a hate crime based on gender. 19 of the 41 statutes cover victims chosen by reason of their gender, and the Federal Violence Against Women Act of 1994 allows individuals to file federal civil lawsuits in cases of gender-based violence. Okay, so what makes it a gender-biased crime against a woman? What has to occur in order to turn it into just domestic violence, beating a woman, into a hate crime? Using derogatory language against the woman. All right, so here comes an example for you. Please don't call the police on me. Please do not call Title IX on me. I'm going to kill you, you motherfucking bitch. That automatically turns it into a hate crime, a gender-biased crime, regardless of what I do. It's the words that create hate. It's the words that hate crimes are designated to protect or to fight against. Not your thoughts, not your actions, but your words. We've seen with, I was watching Meet the Press yesterday, and Upchuck Todd kept talking about how the right-wing talking point, because they were talking about Cuomo. And as you know, you may know, Governor Cuomo of New York is in trouble because he has been groping women in the office. And people are trying to get him to resign. And they're talking about impeaching him as the governor. And Cuomo brought up 2 words that are common in right-wing politics today. And that's called cancel culture. And Upchuck Todd kept calling it a right-wing talking point cancel culture. That there is no such thing as cancel culture outside of Fox News and the conspiracy theorists. We're not canceling anybody. We're sanctioning people who are racist and use bad words. When it comes into actions, we're now looking at vandalism. The institutional vandalism or hate vandalism, is when a person commits vandalism by knowingly vandalizing, defacing, or otherwise damaging an institution, a building, a graveyard, a tombstone, or something based upon the thought or the idea. Okay, so I used to go to shul, temple, church, synagogue in San Angelo. And I thought I learned the same thing happened when I was in Turkey. When I was in Turkey, we'll go back up. When I was in Turkey, I would go to temple and we had a secret knock. And the synagogue was protected by armed guards. But the knock was, and then they'd let you in. If you didn't give the knock, they won't open the door for you, because the Turkish gentlemen, the Muslims in the neighborhood, targeted the Jews. They would know who the Jews were, and it was just horrible. In San Angelo, every 6 months or so, somebody would go spray paint swastikas on the synagogue doors. They would spray paint on the side of the building. Go back to Poland, you fucking Jews. Nice, loving place, San Angelo. But if you make these attacks against or you vandalize based upon a hateful ideology, that becomes a hate crime as well. Okay, so bias-motivated crimes. A bias-motivated crime is defined or is by reason of actual or perceived race. If you commit a crime against somebody just because you think they are of a specific race, color, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender, or any of the other protected groups, just because, we'll use my wife for an example. Some of you have met my wife. Some of you know my wife. A lot of people think she's Hispanic. Well, technically, by definition, she is. She is 13% of her bloodline is from the Basque region of Spain. My sister-in-law has a lot more issues, but my wife has been called some pretty nasty things because people think she's a Hispanic woman. It's surprising I'm not in prison. But anyway, if you're Hispanic, I'm sure you've heard some of these words. They perceived my wife as being Hispanic, and they made these hateful comments, this hate speech against her because of the perceived belief that she was Hispanic. In actuality, she's 73% British, 100% European is her descent. She is technically a Sephardic Jew, which is where she gets her dark hair and her complexion and her facial structures and everything. And the Sephardic Jews come from Spain. So, also making her Hispanic according to the definition of the word. She doesn't consider herself Hispanic, she considers herself Jewish. But if people make these hateful comments against her, that's a bias-motivated concept on a perception, not based on any truth or reality. Punishment for hate crimes. You would think that the punishment for being convicted of a hate crime would be something that was horrible, right? With the way that we treat haters in this country, you would think that it was a horrible punishment. In reality, hate or bias motivated is a Class A misdemeanor. I remember when they tried to get hate crime legislation confirmed here in the state of Texas, Governor George Bush, governor at the time, vetoed the hate crimes legislation. And he said, why do we need hate crimes legislation? If you're committing a crime, don't you already hate them? Don't you already hate the victim that you have focused on? Punish the crime. Their thought process is already wrong. Oh, and boy, did he get grilled over that. Because they expect, well, if this crime was something that was based specifically or was founded in hate, you need to be punished more. Which brings me back to the other research project I'm talking about and I'm doing. What is the police for? Why do we have cops in the street? I didn't hear you. To keep the community safe. To protect us from crime, from evil. How quickly do you think that the police would respond to the softball field if there was an active shooter? I'm picking on the softball team today because I got kicked out of the softball game on Friday because I carry a concealed weapon. And it is against the rules of the NCAA, not the softball team's fault, not UTPB's fault. It's a NCAA rule that you can't have concealed carry at any NCAA or ticketed event. So how long do you think it would take the cops to respond to the softball field? Here's a better question. Do you think that the cops know where the softball field is? Yeah,
They do. They sit out like, in the back sometimes.
the UTPB cops.
Well, they sit out in that little parking lot. There's like, I mean, sometimes they're UTV, but like sometimes there's other ones that.
Sometimes there are other cops. Okay.
Sit in that back parking lot.
Punishment is a $10,000, maximum punishment is a $10,000 fine and an additional 5 years in prison. It doesn't matter what crime you commit. If you are found guilty of a bias-motivated crime, you can have up to $10,000 added to your fine and an additional 5 years in prison. This section does not apply to any crime if proof of race, religion, color, disability, orientation, national orientation, ancestry, or proof of any person's perception of belief regarding another's race. If you committed the crime because you think they're black, you committed the crime because you think they're brown, you committed the crime because you think they're white, you committed the crime because you think they're Jewish or Catholic or Buddhist, or if you're an AAPI. Do I need to define AAPI, or did I do that last week? Everybody knows it now. It's Asian American Pacific Islanders. The new Black Panther Party and the Black Hebrew Israelites have started a war against the Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. The media is attempting to accuse Trump supporters of it because Trump calls it the China flu or the China virus. Okay, so moving on. Hate groups and hate crime defined. A hate crime is a criminal offense committed against a person or property which is motivated in whole or in part by all of the protected statuses. And they're all listed there. A hate group is an organization that targets a protected class or a group of protected people, whether it's race, ethnicity, religion, or another sector of society, sexual identity, gender identity. And the term hate group is not used by the group themselves. The Ku Klux Klan does not call themselves a hate group. And this is one of the things I like about the survey, is that you guys asked, what do you consider yourself? Other people consider you this. What do you consider yourself? The people of the National Alliance and the people at the Black Lives Matter movement are going to give you the same exact answer. We are not racists. We're not a hate group. We are interested in protecting the equality and the viability of our race. So let's define race. What is race? Or what is a race? Get all politically correct here. It's just the human race. We're all one people. Okay, if we're all one people, how can you have racism? Race is a identified genetic DNA separator between individuals. You have the Caucasian race. And I used to have a picture, and I need to see if I can get the picture of the skulls of people of different races. The skeletal system is different based on whether you are, and these are now considered racist terms, Caucasoid, Mongoloid, or Negroid. Whether you are white, black, or Asian. These are the three identified races through science. Do we include Hispanics as a race? Is it interchangeable? Pretty much. But are they a race? No, they're an ethnicity. In fact, the Hispanics are, this is going to come out wrong, there's no polite way to say this. The Hispanic population is a mixture between the Caucasoid or the Caucasian and the Mongoloid or the Asian. So you have the Native Americans, the Aztec, the Mayan, whatever Native American first peoples that were here, and they bred with the Spanish. And now we have Hispanics. Sorry, that's just the way that it happened. But yes, it does sound a little racist, doesn't it? Racism is defined as treating one race or group of people above any other race or group of people while oppressing that group. So if I want to treat somebody differently based upon the color of their skin, that's racism. If I want to lift somebody higher than another person based upon the color of their skin, that's racism. If I want to subjugate or oppress somebody based upon the color of their skin, that's racism. I know there's a movement out there called the 1619 Project that states that white people are inherently racist and they have no choice but to be so, while people of color cannot be racist because they are an oppressed people. So how do they want to fix it? They want to fix it by subjugating and oppressing other peoples. In 2020, okay, the next couple of slides, the next two slides, are going to come from the Southern Poverty Law Center. The Southern Poverty Law Center is a hate group watchdog group. They track hate groups. Okay, so if you want to look into your general hate group, go to the Southern Poverty Law Center. In 2020, there was 838 hate groups in this country. When I started this research in 2008, there was 1,150 identified hate groups operating inside the United States of America. In 2016, that number was 1,500. The administration between 2016 and 2020, that guy we don't like to talk about, crushed 300 identified hate groups. An exact opposition of what we hear about him in the news. But I like to watch this, and I guarantee you, we're only a few weeks into the Biden presidency. This number, 838, is going to go up. And it's going to go through the roof over the next 4 years. We also see an increase in the militia. I know some of you are working with the militia. But the militia is not always based on race. The militia is based on threat to the Second Amendment. The Oath Keepers are out to protect the Second Amendment and our right to keep and bear arms everywhere except the softball field. Yes, Sydney, I'm going to bash the softball field every opportunity I get. It's not against you personally, and you had nothing to do with it. But I can't go to the football field either. So guess who's not going to a football game this year? I went back on Sunday and I watched an inning and a half, and I left my wife in the truck with my gun so I could go watch Sydney play softball. And she didn't. Not while I was there. And then after they lost the first game, they went and had their little huddle in the left field. After that, a whole line of softball players ran to the bathroom. I was hoping to be able to say hi to Sydney, but she never came out of the dugout. I said, well, I'm going home.
Yeah, no, I warm up pictures. I warm up pictures.
You had to warm up the pictures?
Yeah, I don't ever like go out.
So I just left, went home. Okay, that's a whole lot of hate groups though, isn't it? El Paso made the list. Lubbock, Amarillo. Oh, let's just move on to Texas. There are 54 hate groups currently active in the state of Texas. 14 of them are in Houston. Fourteen of the hate groups are in Houston. We've got some down in Corpus Christi, San Antonio, San Angelo. The one in Amarillo is not there. This is supposed to be Lubbock, although I think it looks closer to Abilene. I mean, closer to Odessa. Abilene, the Christian Identity Church operates out of Abilene, but let's go to the next slide. The next three slides break down, as of this morning, break down the different groups that operate in Texas and where they operate. Acts for America. Somebody's doing a research project on Acts for America, and I do not remember who. I think it's Keeley. I don't know. Acts for America operates in the state of Texas. Okay. I copied and pasted this. So you see all of the orange signs? They're linkable. So when I share this, if you click on it, it'll bring you to identify the particular group. There's anti-Muslim groups in Houston, Austin. They're known as the Ambassadors of Christ. They are a non-denominational Christian group that is anti-Muslim, and they target Muslims. The American Freedom Party, it's actually a militia operating out of Houston. The White Nationalists are in Granbury. The name of their group is the Asa Through Folk Assembly. And the list goes on. Neo-Nazis, the Church of the Ku Klux Klan, the Concerned Christian Citizens is a right-wing group that is an anti-black group. They target and they focus on African Americans. There's anti-LGBTQII plus P in Temple. They're called the Cercis Honorarium Foundation. There's 3 chapters of Identity Dixie, which is a it's a neo-Confederacy group. The Israel United, this is hate music. It's supposed to be the Israel United in Christ is actually a Black Hebrew Israelite group. So it is a anti-white, anti-Jewish group. General hate groups the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. What does names like this end up doing to the uninitiated when it comes to thinking about Jews? Because don't most people identify Israel with the Jews? So anything named, any hate group identified as Israelite has got to automatically be a bunch of Jews, right? Well, they're the black Hebrew Israelites. They are anti-white, anti-Jewish group. One body in Yahawashi. I don't know who Yahawashi is. I do, but it has been learned in the last 10, 15 years that the name of God is Yud-He Vav-He. Translates into English, I am that I am, or I will be that which I will be. But the Yud-He Vav-He that you see in the Bible has no vowels. So there is this great big humongous fight amongst everybody that believes in the God of the Bible or the God of Israel as to the pronunciation of God's name. As a Jew, I just call him Hashem. Hashem, it translates into English as the name. He knows who I'm talking about. But there's Yahweh. The house of Yahweh operates out of Abilene. There's Yahuwah. And there is Yahawashi. And all these different ways to pronounce the name of God. And the Patriot Front, the white nationalists, the Patriotic Brigade of the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. There's an anti-LGBTQ QII plus P group. That's also the El Paso group. It's an Orthodox Catholic anti-homosexual. I know we're not allowed to use homosexual word anymore, but it's an anti-LGBTQ plus everything. Anti-immigrants are in Houston. Anti-Muslim. The Truth in Texas publishers used to be here in Odessa. They've moved to El Paso. The Neo-Volkish, that is a neo-Nazi group running out of Waxahachie. The Klan, you notice the Klan is everywhere. Christy used to live in Waxahachie. The Steadfast Baptist Church. Here's another one. There's another Baptist. There's a few Baptist churches or people that call themselves Baptist churches that associate with the Christian Identity Church. And we'll get into that a little more in depth here in a little bit. But that's all of the groups that are operating in the state of Texas. So if you are focusing on one of these general groups, you can go find out who their leaders are and send me their contact information so that I can send them a link to the survey. So the FBI and civil rights. Hate crime is a federal crime. Yes, the states have them as well. It's not a distinct, I just said that it's a federal crime. It's not a distinct federal crime, but it is investigated by the federal government. You guys familiar with Rodney King? You guys are all criminal justice professionals. You should know about the Rodney King event and incident, right? No? In 1991, Rodney King was pulled over by 40 police officers. He was going down Interstate 5 in California at 125 miles an hour. He pulled off the side of the road. He left the interstate, got down into the streets. He stopped, the cops stopped him, and 4 police officers Sergeant Stacy Kuhn, Anthony Powell, and the other two guys, I never remember their first names, but Wind and Briseño beat Rodney King to within an inch of his life, broke his jaw, broke both legs. They just beat him. Sergeant Stacy Kuhn tased him 37 times. They would tell him to stop moving and to lay still. He'd move, and those four guys would hit him. Powell's the one that broke both of his legs. He hit him in the knees with his nightstick. Powell made some comments about the neighborhood that Rodney King lived in and compared the neighborhood with the Gorillas in the Mist. And then later in the hospital, talking to Rodney King, he said, I sure did get a few home runs off your N-word ass, didn't I? The world erupted. I was in Turkey at the time. The world erupted, and these four guys were arrested. The video was actually just at 2 minutes long. The event took about 2 minutes. But we only get to see 90 seconds. And these 90 seconds of these four guys beating Rodney King mercilessly. And we only see the four cops beating Rodney King mercilessly. If you pan out on the video, you see 45 cops standing around in a circle watching Rodney King get beat. It ended up, Rodney King ended up with a $7 million settlement, and these four guys went to court. These four guys were charged with excessive use of force, aggravated assault, and attempted murder. And the courts freed them. They acquitted them and said that their actions were justified, and it was justified because it was witnessed by 45 cops, and nobody stood up and did anything to stop it. Those 45 cops included Hispanics, they included Asians, they included African Americans, standing in this ring around these four cops. But what's the rule? The rule is do what a cop says. So one cop would say, stop moving, and he would hit him. What happens if you get hit? You're going to recoil, right? You recoil, somebody else hits you. And then you recoil, and Stacy Kuhn pulls the trigger on his taser. And this just kept going on and on and on for 90 seconds. It's probably the longest 90 seconds in Rodney King's life. Rodney King has since passed away.
Why did they do it?
Pardon?
Why did they do it?
He refused to obey command. They continued because they refused to obey command. Rodney King stood 6'6". He was 335 pounds. Two cops tried to put him on the ground, and Rodney King flung him off like they were just a mosquito.
No, but like, why did they stop?
He was speeding.
Oh,
He was speeding. The California courts acquitted these four cops. So the federal government used their jurisdiction and arrested them again and tried them again and convicted Powell and Kuhn and sentenced them to 3 years in federal prison. The other two were acquitted and were allowed to go back to work. So the FBI will get involved if there is a bias motivation in the crime. They will file federal charges against you, but there is no distinct federal law that says that you've broken the law. There's no law against racism or hatred at the federal level. but the FBI investigates it. Crimes against race in 2019 are listed here. Okay, you can go to the fbi.gov/UCR/UCR.htm, and you can look up the hate crime statistics. Okay, I used to have several years listed, so that you could see the progression, but I removed those, and the most recent data we have is 2019. That's a lot of incidences. 7,000 race-based instances in the United States in one calendar year. It's a horrible number. 666 of them were against whites. So even the devil is against white people. Anti-black or African-American is at 1,900. Anti-Native American is 119. Anti-Asian is 158. And this number is going to go up for 2021. Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander is 21. And again, that number is going to go up. Anti-Arab, anti-Hispanic is at 527. Individual instances. I have a question though. How many of these anti-white were actually Hispanic? Just a thought. Crimes against religion. Jews take the top of the list, 953. Anti-Catholics at 64, anti-Protestants, anti-Islamic, anti-other religions like Buddhist and Hindu, etc. Anti-Mormon, the Jehovah's Witnesses. I wonder if they need to start counting every time somebody slams the door in the face of a Jehovah's Witness. Because that happens 7 or 8 times a day on the weekend, right? When the Jehovah's Witnesses come to your house, what do? I go get my Bible and I sit outside with them. They go, "Can't we go in the house?" I said, "No, you're not Jewish. You're not allowed in my house. You're not clean," which is kind of funny. Anti-Sikh, Hindu, Buddhists, other Christians. Against sexual orientation. Anti-gay, male specifically. Anti-lesbian, anti-LGBT groups, anti-heterosexuals, and anti-bisexuals, all for the year of 2019. Crimes against disability, gender identity. Okay, the Uniform Crime Report, the FBI tracks all of these crimes. And you can get all of this information and you can do research on it. And you can do a tracking. You can find out how these numbers progress through the years. And they keep them, they've been, Bureau of Justice Statistics has been keeping and publishing this information since the 1930s. And it is all there for your edification. So how do hate groups operate? Hate groups disseminate inaccurate historical information about the target of their organization. Typically, they prejudge an individual based upon the appearance, based upon what they've been taught or told. They work to achieve their goals by using fear and hate, intimidation as their MO to target the object of their hate. In Western societies, organizations are dedicated to the incitement of racial violence. There is a move in this country to start a racial civil war. I challenge you not to let them influence you. I think that's one of the things and one of the problems that IRB had was they were afraid that if I forced you and I made you to go start researching racism and researching hate and these groups, that you were going to be influenced by them and you were going to be part of their group. You have to remember, as you're going into it, you're talking to these groups, well, you're not talking to the groups, but you're getting information from these groups, that the information they're going to be sharing with you is going to be skewed. There's going to be elements of truth, and there's going to be parts of truth that you're going to recognize and you're going to understand. And then based upon that, they twist it to make it say something else. They spin it to say, well, if this is true, this must be true as well. We're going to use a little bit of logic with you. We covered logic a few weeks ago, right? We're going to, if this is true, then this has to be true. Well, the hate groups disseminate this information for that sole purpose. So as you're gathering this information about these groups, remember that their information is based to influence you to become part of their group. They don't avoid the classification. Some of them, they'll openly admit that they hate, but they don't call themselves a hate group. The Ku Klux Klan, according to David Duke, is not a hate group. It is a community organization based for the protection of the white race and the advancement of white people. You've heard of the NAACP. There's also the NAAWP, the National Association for the Advancement of White People. They're considered a hate group because they're looking to promote and to advance the white race over all others. The NAACP is not considered a hate group because they're hoping to achieve equality. I know we've moved from equality to equity, and those are two different things. Our quest for equality is not our quest anymore. Martin Luther King Jr., in his speech, said, I have a dream that one day people will be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. One day I will be seen as an academic, not a Jew. One day my research will be respected for the research's sake, not bashed or destroyed because I'm a Jew, or I'm black, or I'm Hispanic, or I'm Native American, or I'm Asian. Today we're looking at equity. We're going to treat some segments of the population differently to ensure that everybody receives the same outcome. So how hate groups operate. There are two main elements that are present in any hate group or in all of the literature and the tracts that you find from hate groups. These include dehumanizing or demonizing the target, conspiracy theories that are not well backed up or referenced. Where are you getting your information? Oh, I'm just making the shit up as I go. I have no evidence to back up my claim, but here's the claim. What they're gonna do is they're gonna also find people with PhDs to support this. David Duke has a PhD from a university in the former Yugoslavia. Lamont Hill has a PhD. There's a whole, and that's a different lecture, but there's a whole list of people that just because they have those three letters behind their name, they are automatically granted some level of respect and authenticity or authority because they have comma PhD after their name. But their information, these tracks, they have no peer-reviewed evidence. They don't show where they get their evidence. When you guys are tracking and you're copying this information off the websites and you're putting it in your journal, make sure that you also, because you're going to need to notate it, you're going to need to cite it. Retrieved off of this website on this date. Because what happens if they delete the website? And you say, so-and-so said such and such on this website. So you go to the website and it's not there. I can't find this. Well, it was there on this date. I can't help it if it's been deleted. So make sure you're getting websites and you're taking information off of websites that you notate the date that you received it. Some people claim without referring to scholarly works that there are two additional characterizations. Claiming to be a minority that speaks for the silent majority. A proclamation of scholarly or scientific support for their theories without providing those theories or without providing those citations. Okay. And then the support may turn out to be non-existent, pseudoscience, partisan, one-sided, or once you examine it. We are writing a very touchy book, a sensitive book. People are not going to agree with us, especially when we label specific groups as extremists. But we are going to have to identify, I'll identify in the opening chapters, what we are defining as extremists. Not just hate, not just white supremacy, but groups that create polarization and that promote polarization or cause polarization. So the psychopathology of a hate group is that, in accordance with the FBI report, a 2003 report, which Sydney's already read and annotated, the Law Enforcement Bulletin 3, a hate group, if unimpeded, will pass through 7 successive stages. And they're called the 7 stages of hate. The 7 stages of hate are split into 2 groups. The first 4 stages of the hate groups vocalize their beliefs. They create the group. They create their self-identity. They show who they are, and they pick their target. The last 3 identify a transition from rhetoric to action, to physical assault and physical abuse. Hate speech is always a prerequisite of hate crimes, and it is necessary for their existence. Similar stages have proposed genocide. There is a 1619 curriculum that is being proposed in the California Independent School District that was reported on the Glenn Beck show this morning. Actually, Glenn Beck wasn't on the show. It was Stu Bergier and Pat Gray. They reported, and I have not verified this yet, but I haven't had the opportunity. But this curriculum in California is suggesting that the only way that we can find equity and equality inside the United States is to start a white genocide. If this is true, the California school district, the state of California that declares the curriculum for the state of California is turned into a hate group. If they're promoting the murder and death of an individual based upon the color of their skin, that is a racial genocide. That is a hate group. So, stage one. Stage one is grouping. Humanity and humans are a social people. We like to hang out with people. So this last year of being locked down, being stuck in our homes, those of us living in Texas, we have had an easy time over the last year. But you go to Pennsylvania, you go to Michigan, you go to New York, you go to California, these people still aren't going to school. Schools are closed, businesses are closed, restaurants are closed. You can't go anywhere. You can't go do anything. You can't go hang out with your family without the risk of going to jail. We as humans, regardless of the color of our skin, regardless of the God that we pray to, we are a social person, and we're a social people. We like to hang out with other people. And we like to hang out with other people that are like us, that have the same ideas as us, that look like us. I did an article called, Why has there been a decline in civic participation since the decades following the Civil Rights Act of 1964? That is a really, really super long title to discuss white flight. White flight is not just what we hear in the media, where the whites left the inner city and moved out to the suburbs to avoid the people of color living in the inner city. That is true. That is part of the truth. But that's not everything that happened after 1964. After 1964 and the legislative order to desegregate, we as people voluntarily segregated. And I used to do this when I was at Howard College. I've not done it here yet. But have you ever gone over to Chartwell's and gone to the lunchroom and had a meal? Have you noticed who's sitting with who? Granted, you have the football team over here, you have the basketball teams over here, you have the softball team and the baseball team, and the teams all sit together. Why do the teams all sit together? They share something in common. The coach will tell you it's to create a sense of team and teamwork. Society is the same way. When you go into a restaurant or you go into a church or a synagogue or temple or whatever you go to, do you look for people that you know? The first thing that you do when you go into a place to look for a sit down, or even when you come into class, the first day of class, do you look for somebody that you know? After you finish looking for somebody that you know, if there's nobody that you know, you look for somebody that looks like you. I find that the girls sit together. The guys will sit together. Hispanics will sit together. Whites will sit together. African Americans will sit together. because that's where we're comfortable. This is a reality. The hate groups target it, they focus on it, and then they look for peer validation. The peer groups, once you find this group that you want to be a part of, they create your significance. They validate your significance. They validate who you are and what you are. Because you have been emasculated in the general larger society. Because you have had your quest for significance destroyed by the larger society, you are going to go group with people that will support you. We do this in families. If a family member busts your chops too much, if a family member busts your chops too much, what do? You stop contacting them, right? I'm not getting involved in this anymore. I'm not going to talk to them anymore. I'm not going to discuss with them. I'm not going to be part of the family anymore. My little brother did that. He cut off the entire family because my dad kept calling him a liberal, libtard crybaby. So my brother doesn't talk to him anymore. I got into a discussion with him this weekend where he told me that I need to keep my liberal, progressive, claptrap crap in the teacher's lounge there at the university, and I have no business talking outside of the university. Guess what? He's gone. I turned off all notifications so I don't have to be bothered by him anymore. I didn't delete him. I didn't go as far as my brother had. But I'm not going to pay attention to any of all of that. Because my significance has been destroyed. So I'm going to look for people that are going to promote me. They're going to boost my ego. And this is what happens with the hate groups, with the grouping. These groups will also provide you a welcome anonymity so that you can express your views and express your opinions without being held accountable for it. And this is what the cancel culture is about, is holding people accountable for the words that they use and for the things that they do. It's not a bad thing to hold people accountable for what they do. The hate groups will protect you from that. I'm not promoting you to go join a hate group, but this is what the hate groups and what part of grouping does. Stage 2 is self-definition. This is where we're going to identify who we are as a hate group. We're going to pick our symbols, and these are things that you need to find in your research on your particular group. What symbols do they use to identify who they are? Do they use the swastika? Do they use the closed fist of black power, brown power, or the open hand of white power in the neo-Nazis? What kind of rhetoric, what kind of words do they use to identify who they are? What kind of mythologies do they follow? What kind of rituals do they have? If you're going to profile these groups, you need to learn all of this information, and it goes into your report. Like the neo-Nazis, they wear Doc Marten boots, and their rank is identified by the color of their boot laces, the shoelaces in their boots. If the shoelaces are black, they're a prospect member. If they're just the shoelaces that came from the store, they're prospect members. Once those boot laces turn white, they are an official member of the neo-Nazi hammer skinheads. Once those shoelaces turn yellow, it shows that they have been convicted of a hate crime. They've committed a crime, a hate bias crime against the target of their influence. Once those bootlaces turn red, they've drawn blood for the race. My bootlaces come with the boots, so I guess I'm just a prospect. So if you see somebody running around wearing Doc Marten boots and they've got white, yellow, or red shoelaces, you know who they are. It's a symbol. It's a way to identify them. At the same time, they're still going to be degrading the object of their hate. This is where they're going to identify their target. Stage 3. Disparaging the target. You're going to verbally attack and debase the object of their hate. They will try to enhance their own self-image. They will try to enhance their group status. They will enhance the reputation of their group within the larger society or the larger community. I'm acting this way. We're doing this because we are the silent minority of the people. There's a whole lot of people that believe the way that I believe, but they're too afraid to stand up and become a martyr. I'm willing to become a martyr for the cause. So now they're adding influence. They're increasing their value, their wealth. And this is a psychological snap that at this point in stage 3, the hater is willing to become a martyr. And if you're going to stop an individual from becoming a hate group member, it has to be right here at stage 3. Because if he gets to stage 4, you're going to start losing that opportunity. You need to be able to give him time for reflection. One of the things that hate groups operate on, and one of the things that the hate groups depend upon, is not giving their members an opportunity to reflect. They feed upon the hate and with rhetoric, on and on and on again. And they're going to do this by targeting upon the target of their hate. The N-word is got to be the most favorite word of all involved. My nephew, his name is Joshua Rodriguez. He is Hispanic, believe it or not. His father was from Mexico. His mother was my wife's sister. And on his Facebook, all of his friends call him using the N-word with the soft A. Because apparently there's a difference between using the N-word with a soft A and the N-word with a hard R. My opinion, the N-word is the N-word. It doesn't matter if it's playful or not. And I keep asking Josh, why do you let people call you this degrading name? Well, it doesn't mean anything. We're just friends. He's using the A. No. The N-word is a racial derogatory term, and allowing anybody to call you that is wrong. Period. But anyway, the N-word gets thrown around. But the N-word only means a derogatory thing depending upon who's using the word, right? I'll use the word kike. kike is the N-word used against Jews. So if there are any white supremacists, Jew haters in the world, when you start talking bad about me, you can say, hey, that fucking kike. But if I hear you, I'm gonna break your head. I don't let my friends call me kike. I don't let my neighbors call me kike. I don't let my family call me kike. I don't let other Jews call me kike. It is a derogatory term intended to insult and dehumanize. So is the N-word. You can say that it means something else, but that word is intended to dehumanize and minimize the hearer. And if you keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, you're going to eventually get to the point to where you are taunting your target. Stage 4, you're not in-house anymore. You're not growing your group. You're not trying to create your own identity as a member of this hate group. You are actually going out and taunting your target. Because if you can get your target to respond with violence, if you can get your target to respond with violence, then you're defending yourself. Right? They fought first. They struck first. They punched first. I'm just defending myself. The federal government and the state of Texas has enacted laws that states if you are taunting your target and your target responds with violence, you started it. So now I'm legally protected. You call me a kike, I'm breaking your nose. Who's going to jail? You are, right after you go to the hospital and get your nose set. Because this has been identified as the start of violence. You've seen two guys in the schoolyard, they're puffing up, they're yelling at each other, they're calling each other names, they're making fun of each other, hoping that the other will throw the first punch. Taunting. And to avoid introspection, to avoid reflection, the haters will increase their use of this rhetoric. They're going to create more and more hate speech and hate rhetoric. Because if you get them alone, you get them quiet and you talk to them and give them a time for reflection. You can stop them. You can change their direction. You can change who they are. And the most racist thing I've ever heard is I'm not a racist, I've got black friends. Some of my best friends are black. Some of my best friends are white. Some of my best friends are Jewish. Some of my best friends are Hindu or Buddhist or whatever. Okay, so next time, the same back channel, we are going to move, or we're going to transition into the violence, and then I'm going to start profiling some of the groups. I will put this PowerPoint in Canvas. Code word for today is hate group.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The literature review, is that like the MC to bibliographies?
No. Literature review, when's that coming due?
Sunday.
This Sunday? Okay, it will not be due this Sunday.
Uh,
Let me make that announcement now.
So what is it?
This week's assignment for the literature review will not be due this Sunday. Do not worry about it. But what is a literature review? A literature review is part 2 of your research project. And as being part 2 of your research project, it identifies what we know about the theory that we're involved in and about the groups that we're studying. The literature review is a preview of your whole paper. It's just a section or a part of your paper. Last week, or yesterday, the purpose statement or your introduction was due. The literature review will be next, and I'm not going to expect you to turn it in until after I cover the literature review and lecture. So that won't be until April. Probably April Fool's Day. Okay, so please do not be concerned about this weekend's assignment. Other than your annotated bibliographies and your journal, that's still going to be due. But the literature review, I'm going to push it back. Okay. Any questions as to what we've covered today and what I expect you to do in addition to, for your research project?
Okay, so since I'm doing the picture movement, there's like it's in different places. Would I just send you like a bunch of leaders and just like?
Yep. Every leader that you can find.
Okay.
Any other questions? Comments or concerns? Okay, I'm going to stop recording at this time. Have a good day.